A very warm welcome to everybody here from Djuma Game Reserve here in the Sabi Sands in South Africa. I hope everybody is well. I am so excited to be back from my trip to Australia. It is so wonderful to be back in the bush with such a beautiful sunrise this morning. I've just been sat here enjoying the sounds of the bush, which has been absolutely fantastic. I have missed them, but I did really enjoy my trip to Australia. Hi everybody and welcome to Safari TV. My name's Tara and I've been away for about 2 weeks on holiday, but I'm finally back and definitely got a few stories to tell. But I had a wonderful time, and thank you to everybody in Australia for what a wonderful stay, an absolutely fantastic stay, and thank you very much to Lisa, who kind of went quite well out of her way to show me the sights of Perth, which was awesome, absolutely awesome. As I say, it's great to be back, and as I say, such a beautiful sunrise this morning. Joining me on the Gunda this morning is Alex behind the camera, and in Final Control we have Patrick. So if you would like to ask any questions, then send them through to finalcontrol@safari.tv. I just want to turn your attention to a beautiful bird just to our left here, and this is actually what we were looking at just before we actually saw the sunrise. He's been sat here very patiently waiting to show himself to everybody. I wonder if people can identify him. Not one we see very often. We saw a juvenile here a little while ago. Very, very striking. Let's see if anyone actually does come back with any answers to what it is in this fine, beautiful morning. Now don't get distracted by the yellow eyes. There's another bird that looks very similar. It also has yellow eyes, but you need to look at the chest. So I really miss the sounds of the bush. I didn't get a chance to actually stay too much in the Australian bush, so I definitely will have to go back at some stage and experience the sights and sounds of the Australian bush. I can hear a hoopoo in the background. Hoop, hoop, hoop. There you go. And the crest of Franklin's in the back. It's amazing you actually miss these sounds when you're away from them. This bird's also capable of catching monkeys and guinea fowl, so you'll get quite a lot of alarm calls from those animals. And the owner is also reported to see it flying off with an impala, but I think he said it was actually a fully grown impala, which is quite astounding. I'd love to know the full details of that. Hopefully one day I'll be able to ask him about that. But certainly young impala, and I think we may even see these eagles when the impala is starting to breed around December, January time. And as I say, we'll probably be seeing them snatching away a couple of youngsters. Same as black eagles as well. They will sort of break from their normal hyrax or dasi meal that makes up 70 or 80% of their diet, maybe a little bit more. They will have a break from that and actually go and hunt baby impala.
Good morning, Nova Station. Good morning,
Well, for anybody that hasn't guessed it yet, I haven't been getting any answers through, but this is a martial eagle. You can see the spots on its bib, which is different to the snake eagle, the black-chested snake eagle, or black-breasted I think it's called now. You can see the bib, but the black-chested snake eagle actually lacks those spots on the breast. But it also does have a yellow eye. just like the snake eagle. That's what I'm saying, don't listen or don't look at the eye. And it has a small crest on the back of its head. But it looks like it's slightly grey, so I think this is probably a sub-adult. Maybe give it another year and it'd probably be a full adult. I can't speak this morning. See those incredibly powerful claws, the talons. Aiding it in naturally taking the animal apart. Sorry. Yeah, I go. Ah. Okay. I think Jack came through with the right answer, the martial eagle. It came through just as I was saying what it was. Well done, Jack, and hi to you. And I think Vivian said it was the Varro's eagle. But the Varro's eagle is all black, except for the white on its back. But you won't get this white bib on a Varro's eagle. Beautiful birds, a little bit taller than the martial eagle. Martials are around 80 centimeters. Black eagle's about 90 centimeters. The martial a little bit heavier than the Varro's eagle. That's why we've got to be so careful when we're saying which is the largest, because quite often the longest isn't always the heaviest, and that seems to be the case with the martial and the Varro's. Stretching his talons there. There's a lot of power in those claws. You can see him fluffed up a little bit. It is a little bit chilly this morning, but nothing like the winter. He just fluffed his feathers up a little bit just to obviously insulate, trapping a layer of air. And if ever you want to stay warm, that's always the best. Don't put on a big thick jacket, rather put on layers and you trap the air, and that keeps you a lot warmer. The same sort of principle. Starting to look around a lot more. I'm just wondering if he's spotting something. As I say, it's very quiet this side of the bush, so I think all the birds have already spied him. Quite an opposing figure sitting in the tree there. Remember, raptors' eyesight is very, very strong. I mean, it's just as if they've got a pair of binoculars stuck to their face. So for them, they can see the tiniest of movement down below them, and that's what they look for. Hi, Jack. Jack from Virginia asking me if what tastes better, Impala dung or Vegemite. I think that's going to kick off quite a huge debate there, Jack. I actually prefer Marmite, so I'm just going to sit on the fence with that one. But obviously Vegemite being quite a big product out there in Australia. But funnily enough, I didn't actually have any this time. I didn't even have a barbecue. It was just a little bit too chilly. I'm just waiting to see if he's going to fly off, because their wingspan is quite incredible as well. They say the wingspan also will help them to lift very large animals, as I say, like the impala. I'm not ruling it out, but I say a fully grown impala, yeah, I can't even comprehend that, to see a martial eagle lifting a fully grown impala. Maybe it was half an impala, but as I say, it'd be quite nice to actually find out the full details of that. But that came from Yuri, who owns Juma, which is where we traverse here in the Sabi Sands. And obviously he'll know what he's talking about. He's lived in the bush, I think, probably for most of his life. At the moment he seems to be quite content at sitting there. And I hear you guys have had quite a lot of action in the 2 weeks I've been away, with leopards and Duna having a kill in the tree just behind Final Control. And the mating. They have 2 leopards in broad daylight, which is fantastic. Female leopard, I'm not too sure about her. I think she comes from Arethusa. I think it was Mafuffanyan that was mating with her. Oh, was it Yambili? Sorry, Yambili Ordan. And I had a very nice welcome back last night. Went down to meet up with some of the people down in the south towards Chitwa Way, and we had 2 of the Majingi lions roaring on the airstrip, which was fantastic. And it sounds like they were making their way up here. I think somebody did say there was some lion calling around by the dam till about 4:30 this morning. So it'd be quite nice to see if we can go and have a look around the dam, see if there's anything there, because they were actually moving in the general direction towards where we were, in a northwesterly direction. So I do wonder if it was the Majingi lions coming through. Apparently one of the six females was with them 2 days ago now. You see there's no other birds around to mob it either. I think there was about 3 glossy starlings that came in just before we went live, and then they flew off again. And a couple of other birds that you couldn't quite see what they were. It's just a little bit dim still in the light. When you see birds actually moving their head from side to side, they're actually gauging distance. You see owls doing it, and you'll also see monkeys doing it as well. Also, they're having eyes in the front to help gauge distance and depth. And so it just gives them a slightly different perspective to try and gauge it a little bit better. That's why you see them sort of moving their head from side to side sometimes. You'll especially see it on animals that are just about to jump. You'll see them sort of moving, let's say, gauging that distance and then jumping. Okay, well, I think we'll leave him to it. I was hoping he was going to fly off. But, hopefully it's going to be staying in the area. So we have been seeing, we saw a martial eagle probably about 2 months ago now, I think it was. I think it was a juvenile. We saw him for a couple of days, so I am hoping that it's going to be staying around. Keep fingers crossed. Let's see if we can start driving around and seeing what other signs. There's a lot of hyena activity just up on the northern side of Quarantine. It'll be quite nice to see if we can follow up and see if there's been anything around last night. What a wonderful way to start the drive with a martial eagle. And a beautiful sunrise as well. And unfortunately I didn't find any wild kangaroos, which was one of the big things I'd love to have seen while I was out there, but I wasn't in the right places for them, to be honest. I spent a bit more time at Perth. Apparently they do come down to the golf course. And up in Queensland I think there was a few people saying, no, go to Queensland. I'd love to have done, just didn't have enough time. So I had to settle with seeing some in the zoo. A whole range of them. But I was very happy to have finally seen an echidna, which is, it actually does look a bit like our porcupine. It has the quills like a porcupine, but not as many as a porcupine. It's got a long snout for sniffing out termites. And obviously being one of the few egg-laying mammals. And it was quite awesome because it was still a little bit warm. There was two underground, and as we sat there, they actually decided to come up above ground, move around a little bit, and then went back to sleep again. So that was really awesome that we actually managed to catch them outside. Oh, it's still a little bit warm. And I did finally get to see a Tasmanian devil, and they're tiny. I didn't realise how small they were. I always thought Tasmanian devils were going to be quite large. They look a bit like a rat. But again, they are a marsupial, and they're probably about this long. They're not very large, and they're the largest carnivore left in Australia was the Tasmanian tiger or thylacine, Tasmanian wolf, had quite a few different names. Now became extinct. An animal I really wanted to see. But sadly it's not having too great a time of it. It's actually, I think 60% of the population has got a deadly tumour, facial tumour disease, which is actually wiping out the population. I know Lisa did send me some information just before I went on leave actually about it. Trying to find a way to help the Tasmanian devil before it actually becomes extinct as well. I say it's awesome to actually be able to go and see different animals that are endemic to other countries. I say one day I'll see a wild kangaroo. This is not my last trip to Australia. Definitely not. And of course I saw the koala, a very iconic creature, doing what it does best, sleeping. Although we did see one that was moving around a bit. Oh, hello. Some leopard tracks here. Like some buffalo walked over the top of them. Hi Sue, welcome on board this morning. Just wondering how eagles will be able to kill baby impala. Generally they will use their weight. Now when they swoop down they'll land on the baby impala, and usually that impact is enough to crush it. As I say, I haven't yet had the opportunity to see it. I've only heard, especially on my old reserve with the black eagles, and I was always hoping to see it, and I never was in the right place at the right time, unfortunately. And as I say, they'll fly over, swoop down, and say usually the impact is enough, just like a kestrel and a mouse. But obviously if not, then they will have to break the neck. I've not really heard of them starting to eat while it's still alive. I've not really heard of that. And as I say, those legs are so powerful. You can just crush. And obviously using its beak as well. We have some leopard scat here. Unfortunately, there's a lot of buffalo activity that's just wiped out any tracks. So we'll have to walk down here. Wow, the rhinos have been active here. Remember that rhino midden being here. We're able to get this little checker in the tree here. Is he hiding too much? Oh, gone. That's the trouble with checkers. They like to stay in the thick bush and fly off into an open. I might just fly up onto that log. So they usually stay quite well hidden. You don't get a chance to see them very often. You can hear them, but there's a black crowned chegra. There he goes. Yep, flew off. That's the one that sounds like a drunken man trying to whistle. Hi Dee! Having a request here to try and drive past the hyena den. Apparently no one knows where it is. Patrick's saying, you know men, they won't ask for directions. Well then it's your own fault. That's quite interesting, because Herman came with me a couple of times, I think, to go and find it. Maybe he just forgot where it was. But it was actually quite difficult, because even though there were tracks, I've got some line tracks here as well. Probably from last night. They look a little bit older though. Nothing from the leopard. And say where we drove in, I think some of the guys were actually driving out at different spots just to try and stop too many people going to the den and disturbing her. So it was getting a little bit confusing. As I say, it caught me off guard when I went back the second time. Morning stations, I've got some Ingwe and Consoles clambering in an easterly direction towards Twin Dams. That's from quarantine. Still nothing here. Tracks going in. Again, looking a little bit old. Remember, when you're looking at tracks, you look at how much the track has deteriorated. There's not too much wind around. There's a lot of animal tracks over the top, which looks much fresher. That also helps you to determine if they're fresh or not. And I say, those leopard tracks did look fairly fresh. Morning, standing by.
Yeah, morning, sir. I was trying to call heavily. We got some dark of Salaria. It looks like might be going south of the current. The Canada. Just trying to figure out about gravitational system.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Awesome. Apparently there are some wild dogs just in the north. They're still not here yet. The rangers said they'll keep us posted if they do come south onto our part of Boyatella. Just in the north on Gallego at the moment. Didn't say how many wild dog, but keep your fingers crossed. Hopefully. On the side, I haven't seen wild dog yet. Saw it once with Patrick. So I'm going to kind of hover around this area, so if they do come down, we can get to them pretty quickly. Might just see if we can make a turn past the den, but okay, apparently Gary Dam is closed. Quite a few mans in the road, as you do. But when we did go past the hyena den, just before I left, there was no sight or sound of the hyena, and I think that was her first den. And generally the mothers will go and give birth in a separate den to the main den, keep their pups there for 10 days or so until they get strong enough to be able to defend themselves against the other pups, and then she will move them. To the main den, and I think that's what happened. I don't think she is there anymore. So we'll see if we can swing by there and have a quick look. That just spoils all my plans. I want to have a quick check down towards Twin Dam. Oh, sorry, not Twin Dam. Chelapan. See if there's any more tracks that side. And then, as I say, I do want to start moving up that way, just in case those wild dogs do pass through. And dogs can cover quite a lot of distance actually. So even though they are quite far in the north, they could be down here in a matter of minutes. So it would be awesome to see them. I think it was Mark's drive. No, it was Patrick's drive, I think. Mark was on camera. And that they caught them on cheetah cut line. Probably about 3 months ago now, I think it was. There was 4 of them that passed through, and they actually had a rhino sighting. The dogs just walked through where the rhinos were. Beautiful, beautiful sighting. I was directing that day. But I've only ever seen wild dog twice, and both times they've been sleeping. Very, very difficult to keep up with them. So they just continually move if they cut through the bush. So it tends to be very difficult, especially if they're hunting. And they'll actually chase the animal almost to exhaustion, a bit like wolves do. They kind of run in I think they call it a relay, but it's not quite the right terminology apparently. But the front runner will run after the prey, and if the prey cuts a corner, you get one of the back runners cutting the corner. So the front runner then becomes one of the back runners. Obviously helps him to regain his strength, gives him time to recover, and that's how they actually are able to run down the animal. So they can cover kilometres. So your only hope of actually really being able to keep up with them, you try and get in front of them and watch them run past you. Anything from this leopard. I wonder if he actually turned into the block here. Or from the lions last night. I do wonder if we walked up central maybe. It sounds like there's a few guys that went north onto the boundary and they haven't reported any lion tracks. So the one that I did find here didn't look particularly fresh. Looked like it was from 2 days ago. It looks like there's a lot of buffalo activity. It should mean there should be a lot of lion activity. It's so good to be back though. But yes, the bush does look even barer than what I remember it. It died back even more. It's going to be awesome when the rains come. Take Chellapan Road up towards Weaver's Nest, see if they didn't walk that way. So with all the activity of the buffalo, it's very difficult to determine where that leopard tracks went.
So far they stopped here, they can't stop now, this vessel.
Alright, the dogs have become static now. Still in the north. I'm sure everybody is willing them to come down here, self included. Expect to see Chalapan. I think it was just about dry just before I left, so I doubt it's going to really be a water source now. You guys had any rain at all? Just a shower burst. No. It's looking very, very dry. Not even. Just a once. Some rhino tracks here as well. Down into the drainage line. Actually, it may have come up central. We'll just pop across, see if there's anything on Weaver's Nest, and we'll do a loop around because the rhino tracks also head through into the drainage line. And we can come up the other side, see if there's anything there. As I say, I don't want to wander too far from the boundary in the north. Little steamboat just running right across the road. We're seeing a lot more of them at the moment. You see the vegetation's died back. They're actually coming out onto the grasslands. Generally you'll find that the steenbok are in the grasslands, the dakas in the thicker part of the bush, generally. Okay, so from Chelapan onto Weaver's Nest. Seeing there's any tracks, so there's a lot of rhino tracks, so I think we are going to head back to the drainage line, see if they've gone through there. Baboon tracks, buffalo. Could possibly be some lion there actually. So unfortunately there's a lot of other animal activity over it. Look like there's much else here. So head down towards the drainage line, go through to Central Drive, up towards Lane there. So I do wonder if that's where the leopard went as well. At least two rhinos walking together. Quite unusual actually, one's walking this side and one's walking that side. Generally, if rhinos are walking, especially on a trail, they walk one behind the other. And they usually use the same trail, even if it's walking on the road. They'll tend to walk one behind the other. They both look just about the same sort of time, so I don't think it was a male following a female. But yeah, we're going to be able to get it through there. It's quite big through there. I don't often get a chance to see the bushbuck. They tend to be very shy. And yet if you go into Kruger, into Lataba, they've been so used to humans that they're actually quite tame. They're walking amongst you. She's beautiful. Again, a good time of year to see bushbuck. They tend to stick, as the name suggests, into the bush. Oh, she has actually got a lamb with her. Just a little bit too short. You can see the ears moving. Just caught up with the mother now. Yeah, it's disappeared. So I could just see the ears moving. Oh, beautiful. Hopefully you noticed that she had the white spots just on her flank, and that's something very different to the impala. Sometimes people get them mixed up. But impala you'll tend to find in herds. Bushbuck generally solitary, and also you won't see that difference in the colour, so you won't have the dark and then the light like the impala. It was all pretty much one colour, all brown, all uniform, and then you have the white spots. So very, very different. Nyala, the females, also all brown, but they have stripes, remember. So that's how you tell the difference between those three antelope. And I find that people do usually get a little bit mixed up. So hopefully that'll help you. Nyala also, you'll see them in maybe a smallish group, but nothing really like the impala. They're very secretive, very elusive in these parts. I think that's only the second time I've seen a bush buck here in Djuma. Okay. Didn't quite copy the full card info question, but we'll see how we go. But hi Joe Square. Good to hear from you. And first of all, wanting to know if I saw a dingo in Australia. I actually didn't. I didn't even see a dingo in the zoo. But they're technically not supposed to really have been there. They got introduced quite a while ago. It's obviously another animal that you associate with Australia. But say they didn't have any in the zoo either. But also wanting to know how the wild dog hunt and how it differs, I think, from the hyena. I think that's the animal. I'm sure Patrick will correct me if I'm wrong. As I say, the wild dog will hunt as a pack, and that's their greatest force, is the numbers. You can get packs up to 20 or 30 sometimes. So at the moment I know of a pack that's between 4 and 6, and that's off to the west. I think that's our closest pack. I've heard there is a larger, slightly larger pack. I think it's in its teens, number-wise. As I say, they will pretty much outrun or run down the animal, just like wolves. Try to exhaust them. And as I say, you'll get the front runner. They'll start chasing the animal that they've chosen, and they'll stay with that animal. They won't deviate. So even if there's an animal stood, they'll tend to go for that animal. They'll just have their sights set on that, and they, as I say, they'll carry on chasing that animal down. And they will always cooperate in that sense. And then if the animal cuts a corner, that's when the next one also cut the corner. Rhino tracks going off down into here. As I say, they each take it in turns to be the front runner, and once the animal has become so exhausted, that's when they'll go in and they'll start biting the nose. One will maybe take the tail to try and anchor it, and unfortunately they don't always kill it before they start eating. They start taking chunks out of the animal. It's not very nice, but it can be quite quick. I've heard it takes maybe 15 minutes for a pack to completely demolish eating an impala. I think that was probably about a pack of 5 or 6, I think it was. rhino tracks here. Just gonna have a quick pop a head around here and just see if they're in this drainage line. Half expecting them to be lying down here. There are some more tracks there, but the fresh ones look like they came through here. So unfortunately I've never seen a hyena hunting. So I couldn't tell you entirely how I've never actually seen it on documentaries either. So as I say, they've got a lot more strength than the wild dog. So their jaws are incredibly powerful. And again, once they do decide that they're going to go hunting, and for some reason or how they actually hunt, if they decide that they're going to go for zebra, they will walk straight past the wildebeest to get to the zebra. Quite determined in that sense, just like the wild dog. And so without actually seeing, I couldn't tell you exactly how, but I would say that they would overpower it a bit, almost using their energy just like a wild dog. I would expect them to actually use that energy to try and run down the animal, and then once the animal tires, as I say, using their massive jaws and powerful jaws to then take the animal down. So as you just see on the Isle of Bullock there, get a glimpse of him moving on the ridge. You're going to be able to see him through there. We're doing well with the antelope this morning. Such a majestic creature. Again, one of the few antelope that has such a huge diversity when it comes to being male and female. You see the silver mane down the back. Quite a lot darker than the kudu. But they tend to have very light beige legs, whereas the female are completely brown and quite light brown as well, and obviously they do lack the horns, but they're about half the size of the bull. Again, solitary. And you can see that shock of silver hair on the back, and when they feel threatened or when they display to other males, they'll erect that to make themselves look much larger than what they are. You see the hair underneath, quite long hair underneath the neck. Quite a large bull, this one. Almost mistaken for a kudu. And you can see those light beige legs. Looks like they're wearing tights almost. So Joe, I hope one day I might be able to see a hyena hunting. So maybe someone out there has actually seen them if they've been on safari. Maybe they can share an experience with us. Spotted hyenas. Brown hyenas will hunt as well, but they tend to be solitary, so they may go for smaller prey. Harder. But generally they'll eat more insects, more berries, things like that, and a lot more carrion. And depending on where they are, if there's a lot of carrion around, then you'll find that the hyenas don't really hunt much in an area. And I think that's probably true for the hyenas in this area. I think there's quite a lot of opportunity to steal carrion, or steal the kill from another animal, whether it be leopard or lion, or even some of the smaller predators. And there is a lot of opportunity there for them, so I don't think our hyena really need to hunt too much for themselves. A lot of hippo tracks this time. Looks like they came up from Twin Dam. Gone in. One thing I did see, actually, I was very excited about. I didn't realise that we would fly over the Antarctic. So flying over, and you get the little map on the plane, you can actually see the outline of Antarctica. I actually flew just over the tip of it, the outskirts of it. And when I looked out the window, you could actually see icebergs below, which was really, really awesome. Yeah, I'm getting some lion tracks here as well. It might be worth checking out Twin Dam. Do a quick check there. So say we can, if we need to, we can go straight up Weaver's Nest if those dogs decide to come out. There was a lot of activity last night. I don't think there's been anyone coming down this way either. Worth us checking out this side. go. So at least two lions came down this way.
Ayo membagi paling ini tegak masih kau tetap membantu kau juga.
Ephraim, come in. Good morning. I had some encounters fambering down that little link road between Quarantine and Twin Dam. They found it east. I've been trying to follow up onto the drainage line. There's Lutu so far. I've just come across some Ngalo encounters which also fambering upon. They're fambering south towards Twin Dams. Here. Crossing over there. I usually like to go into the drainage line, but I'm expecting to go and drink. Okay, they didn't cross over. Looks like our juvenile battler eagle. I didn't want to say it, just looked from where I was sitting. It looked like a possible osprey or something. But looks like our juvenile battalier eagle that's been around for a few months now actually. Or one of two that we know of. Everything seems to be very quiet. There's some Egyptian geese towards the water. Wow, that water has receded quite a lot. And grey heron also at the water's edge. Blacksmith lapwing. And there's the hammerkop. Just thinking about the hyena den as well. There's a lot of activity up towards Buckleshook Dam. I think that's where the main den is, but it sounds like no one's actually found it yet. around this side and hopefully not scare off birds that are here. See if there's any movement, but as I say, just everything seems to be very relaxed here. Nothing really on alert. I think these lions must have crossed through already. As I say, I'm not finding any more tracks around here. Got the Hadida ibis probing for anything just below the surface. It feels very, very sensitive. And the grey heron. Hear the blacksmith lapwing calling. Named after its core, sounds like a blacksmith's hammer on an anvil. As I say, I'm not completely convinced. We'll have to start being quite careful when we do see pairs. They're going to be protecting their nests quite aggressively. If we get too close to nests, they will start flying at us and calling. And the Egyptian geese there. That prominent spot underneath the chest. That's where they get their Afrikaans name from. Very, very peaceful. Well, what I want to do is make a lap around here and just see if they haven't gone the other side. And up the dam. And then we will try and head into the drainage line. See if we can find where those rider tracks led. So I'm keeping my ear to the ground about the wild dogs, also known as hunting dogs, painted dogs. can be quite a difficult road to track along here, because you can see there's so much traffic moves up and down here, but sometimes, there we go, got the line tracks here. These look like last night. And these look fresher. So there's one set actually going in that direction behind us, but the both sets are coming out here. So occasionally, especially either in the middle, sometimes you can get the tracks. So these line tracks have already been driven over this morning. Especially at the sides, and if you are tracking on a main road, it's better to look at the sides. So cars don't drive as much on that side. So unfortunately, the line tracks are getting wiped out. Yeah. And gone. It's worth just carrying on driving a little bit just to see if there's any more tracks. Might even be lying in the road. So the temperature is absolutely beautiful this morning. It's not too hot, not too cold. Just perfect. This is where they came out last night by the looks of it. Oh, we've got some water buck. Again, very relaxed. So this is where you need to split yourself into three, I think. This is why it's quite useful to have other guides driving around in a similar area, because you can cover so many other roads. So there's so many possibilities, and as I say, with the vehicles wiping out any traces of the rest of the tracks, they could have gone right, they could have gone left, they could have carried straight on, but there's nothing to really say what happened. Also, something just caught her attention. You can see she's lost her attention pretty quickly, so whatever it was, she's obviously deemed it worthy of ignoring it. That real prominent white rump, a white stripe ring around the rump. You see it really nicely there. And they've actually got a different tail to all the other antelope. It's almost rounded rather than flattened like the impala. If you think about the impala tail, it actually tucks quite neatly around, so it actually looks like they don't have a tail. The waterbuck's tail, it always looks to me like it doesn't really belong. Back towards Twin Dams. This isn't throwing anything up. Try that little drainage line just to the east of Twin Dams. Make our way back towards where we left the rhino tracks. Oh, there we go. Lion tracks here again. So I did continue. Garland Conzer's Famber on an easterly direction on Gary, Maine. And Impala. I think our antelope are complete. Oh no, we're missing kudu. Kudu and wildebeest. I don't think there's a lot of interference on the radio this morning. Oh, there's the wildebeest. Speak of the devil. And we literally do, all we need is a kudu and a daker. Saw a daker just running off into the bush, but I didn't manage to get on camera. There's definitely been an antelope drive this morning. Again, quite normal to see two species of antelope together. And I've seen wildebeest and impala more often on my old reserve together. I don't really see it too often here. But again, they're not going to be competing for the same food. Just heard the black-crowned chegla calling them. the counter shading starting to work with the sun shining on the back of these female impala. It's starting to look a lot lighter. You can see it's almost blending in with the beige underneath the dark. You can see the tail there that I was talking to you about earlier. When it's flicking, it just means everything is well. You can see antelope flicking the tails quite a lot, especially when they're in a herd. When the tails stop flicking, it does mean that there's a possible threat. So their intention is focused on looking out for a predator. So if they stop flicking the tails, actually the rest of the herd seem to get a little bit more alert to what's going on. Just want to go to the end of our little area that we traverse on, just to see if anything funny happened with these lion tracks. You never know, they might have just deviated off. And from what I understand, you've not seen lions too much lately. You've seen rhino quite a bit lately. So it'd be nice to see if these cats are here, just to try and continue with them. I think Ephraim is going to try and follow up on the leopard tracks. There they go. So they did cross back over. So if they are in the south, you never know, they might head north later on. That's quite interesting. It looks like, I wonder if they met up with their brothers. There's only 2 Flamingini lions last night that we heard, and there's 2 more sets of tracks here. It could be the same ones. They say there were some moving down the road. There was one set that came out. They say the other sets, 2 sets that have gone in that way. Something funny happened. So we could definitely hear a 3rd, if not a 4th one last night when the 2 Majingi lions were calling. And it was the dark-maned Majingi lion. And it looked like the male with the scratch on his nose, someone was saying. I didn't actually see them too well. Sorry? Yeah, I think he's been kind of nicknamed Smudge, but I don't know if it's official yet. Some of the guides are calling him Smudge. to say these tracks that we were following definitely look fresher. They look like they were from earlier this morning. But it's a bit puzzling why they would come up, turn around and go back again. That's the only thing that doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't look like they were following anything. Could have maybe met something along the way. As I say, we're only really getting part of a story along this road as well, which makes it a little bit more difficult. Look out for any tails twitching or ears twitching. So it could be that they're just lying in the scrub here. So if there's anything lying on the bank here, it's dead enough really to be able to see what's going on. If they're tipped away just somewhere, just out of sight, it's quite difficult to see unless they flick their tail or flick their ears. And if anybody is just joining us for the first time, just tuned in, my name's Tara, I'm your guide this morning. Busy looking for lions, we've got some lion tracks down here in the southern side car traversing area here in Juma Game Reserve in beautiful South Africa on a wonderful morning. It's such a beautiful temperature today, it really is. And joining me on the Gunda is Alex behind camera. Patrick is in final control, and if you'd like to ask any questions, then send them through to finalcontrol@safari.tv. And I'll try and answer those questions as the best of my ability. If there is anything that I'm not sure about, which obviously we can't know everything, and you guys are very welcome to send in information. I'm still waiting to hear if anyone's seen a hyena make a kill. Doesn't sound like anybody has. I don't think it's really been caught on camera much, and unfortunately that's possibly one of the reasons why hyenas have got this image of just being a scavenger and kind of a pest to lions. because it wasn't really filmed very often. They were able to make kills for themselves as well, and they're actually quite good hunters. As I say, if they don't need to waste energy chasing after animals, if they can steal a carcass, there's not as much energy wasted, it's all the better. Preserve more energy, they get more out of it, they don't have to put much effort into it. So I'll just try leadwood just to see if there's any more tracks. Let's say these lines have done something funny. It looked like there was one set coming up here, but it could be that was... So there's only one set crossing towards the end. But those two sets that were on twin dams. I don't know if this one line actually met up and then they went together, and this other line is still around here. So it's not really making too much sense at the moment. Certainly one has crossed over. It could have just been the other one came out to the banking, and with all the traffic movement, just missed the tracks also going over. Going back to Joe's question as well, the wild dogs are actually the most successful hunter in Africa. I forget what the percentages now, but something like around 80% of their hunts end in a kill. Whereas with cats, I think you're looking at more like 30%, if that, if they're lucky. So cats aren't as successful. Twin dams on the other side, just to make sure there's nothing that side. I'll say with that one set definitely crossing. I think the other one has gone across, just to make sure. At stations, there was also some Colombian consuls clambering in an eastern direction, also across twin dams towards Launcher's Nest, if you're interested. There are some Colombian consuls. Copy that. I think I'm going to start heading up towards that way as well, so we can maybe try and follow up on the Combi. It looks like one of the Ngaras founded south towards Chitwa again. I'm still having a look around twin dams to see if we can get some more consoles.
Okay, come here.
Everyone come back? I've been getting a lot of interference. What's the update on those Madaj? I've been getting a lot of interference on my radio. I've got an update on the Dutch calling.
Yeah, I think that you are. I can hear you. I think that you are.
There you go, there's our kudu. Beautiful bull.
Level.
We've got some nyalas crossing in front of us as well. So a nyala female, and here comes a nyala bull behind. Wow, this is beautiful. There goes the kudu bull. Quite a lot larger actually. It's a shame they weren't standing together, but it's probably about half the nyala is about half the size of the kudu bull. It looks like a small family of the nyala, probably both those youngsters were the front female's offspring. And some impala as well. And again, just a different setup for the territory with the nyalas. They don't hold on to a territory, neither do the kudu, but the impala do. So you've got the males holding a territory, which we saw the breeding season around April, May. So they will hold on to a territory and the females will walk through, and the males will try and keep them within that territory. And if they try and move away from that territory, he'll try and chase them back into the centre of the territory. But the nyalas and the kudu don't bother with all that. They'll fight amongst themselves. The most dominant ones will go down to the females, mate with them when it's time to mate, and then either go back into a bachelor group or go on their own. They can be solitary. They don't need to worry about holding on to a territory at all.